Welcome to this new series detailing the language improvements to Visual Basic 9. The largest improvement to Visual Basic in the latest version is without a doubt LINQ, and most of the improvements to the language were to enable LINQ to work its magic. So as a way of explaining LINQ, we're going to be walking through things like local type inference and anonymous types, as well as extension methods and lambda expressions. In a separate series, we'll look at all the LINQ-based technologies like LINQ to SQL, LINQ to XML, the entity framework, and LINQ to entities. Now, this first enhancement that we'll look at is just a warm-up for those more meaty topics. The first enhancement is called Nullable data types, and it basically allows you to create data types like integers and initialize them or set them to the value nothing, which is null. This becomes important in the LINQ story because you'll occasionally have a database table design that allows for a numeric field to be nullable. And prior to Visual Basic 9, you would have to turn a null value from your database into a zero value in your application. And so to avoid this mismatch in LINQ to SQL, this new feature was added. The problem is that you don't always want zero to represent null or nothing. Null was intended to be unknown, and setting it to zero is actually setting it to something that is known. So the semantics are just a little bit different. So as you can see, I have a new project called Nullable Types VB, and it's a simple console application. In fact, for all of the videos in this series, we'll be using a simple console application, print things out to the console window using console.writeLine and then also console.readLine to stop the execution of the console window so that we can actually observe what was printed out to that window. So we'll be doing that. So in the past, you might have been comfortable with creating something like this. Dim first as integer. You could even initialize it to a value. With nullable data types, you add the question mark operator at the end of the data type declaration. This indicates that this variable first can now be set to the value nothing. So, for example, what if we create another one called second as integer equal to nothing? Before Visual Basic 9, that would not have been possible. So let's do this. Let's create a third variable as integer, and we'll set it equal to 0. And then we'll just try to perform a simple calculation. Third equals first plus second. Now if we attempt to run the application here, let's do this as well. Console.writeLine and see if that works. Notice that we get an exception. Invalid operation exception was unhandled. Nullable object must have a value. The reason is because the third variable is not nullable. So when we try to add a nullable value with nothing, we don't get the value 42. We get an unknown value. Let's do this. And we'll add one more line here as well to stop the execution. Okay, let's run it again. Now this time the value is true. We were doing a check to see if is nothing fourth to string and whether that's true or false. In this particular case, fourth is set to nothing because first plus second is not 42. 42 plus nothing is nothing or null. Okay, so you can take away two ideas from this video. First of all, we just want to get you familiar with the concept of nullable data types in Visual Basic, and also point out if you start seeing question marks popping up after your variable declaration, after your data type declaration, the variable, then you'll know basically what's going on here. And then also to introduce you to the idea that nullable types are not like non-nullable types, as illustrated by this little addition example. They are different. And it's a simple little concept, but it will serve us well as we get into Link to SQL in another video series. Okay, so that's it. Thank you.
You just finished watching another great instructional video from LearnVisualStudio.net, your easiest way to learn ASP.NET, C#, Visual Basic, and more.